I had a hobby too. Mine happened to be guns and ballistics, and I studied guns and ballistics as much as I could, and I wrote an article about high velocity.
So out of all my years working at Weatherby, the last 5 have been some of the most exciting. Working with Adam, with him running the company.
And to think that I get the opportunity of carrying on my grandfather's legacy 75 years later here in Sheridan, Wyoming, I mean, it really is a dream come true.
Oh, I'm home. Thank God I'm home.
On Our Mark, the Weatherby Podcast.
All right, welcome back to On Our Mark, the Weatherby Podcast, and we're full swing hunting season now, which is awesome. And actually today is probably the first day it actually feels like hunting season because it finally has some cold air. So we got a new podcast set up. We've got Dale. Hey, Dale.
How's it going, guys?
Good.
Dale, what do you do?
What do I do? I am the digital editor for Petersen's Hunting.
Right on. I knew that, but it's just easier if you say it. And then we've got Tyler, our marketing manager, with us once again. And Tyler and Dale and Josh.
Yeah, Josh Greer from Alaskan Optics.
Yep. You guys recently had a moose hunting adventure, DIY, off the Hall Road that I actually know very, very little about until this podcast on purpose. So I'm dying to know the details. So Tyler or Dale, why don't you start walking us through it?
Yeah, I'll kick it off. So this whole thing started with a phone call from Dale, and it was probably in like June or so. And he's like, "Hey, crazy idea. What do you think about doing a DIY moose hunt?" And I think he got through like half of the sentence, and I might have said yes already.
Yeah, actually, I feel like I called you and said, "Hey, would you be interested in hooking us up with some rifles for this DIY moose hunt that my buddy Josh from Alaskan Optics wanted to go on?" And before I could even do it, he's like, "Not only am I going to give you rifles, but I want to go on it as well." And I was like, "All right, cool, man, let's do this."
Yeah, I can't even remember at that point. It was like, is this going to be a work trip? Or if it's not a work trip, I was like, I'm going to take time off and do this on my own time. But it was pretty awesome experience. But yeah, so we kind of kicked it off in June. I think I went to Luke and said, "Hey, we're going to do this." And he pretty much said, good luck, kind of thing.
Go for it. Go for it.
But on this particular trip, none of us had done this trip before. So it was kind of like we have had friends that have done something similar. But honestly, I didn't know a lot of people that did the DIY moose that I got a lot of advice from. So
I think one of the things I told you, Tyler, was we actually had an option to go year before last on a DIY moose hunt, airboat in and like float out was our plan. And then upon like further interviewing the airboat guy, he's like, "Man, it's tough for non-residents of Alaska because it's 50 inches or 4 brow tines.
Yeah.
And the genetics in this area, there's some big moose, but there's not a lot of 4 brow tines, which makes it hard for non-residents." And so I was talking to the guy I was going to take, and we both were like, maybe let's just pass for a year. We had some other stuff come up, but
and that exact rule,
I think it was very close to where you guys were going to be.
Yeah, and that exact rule comes into play pretty hard about day 5, but we'll get there. Poor Dale. So
okay, so just like start me off from the beginning. How'd you get there?
So like pretty much during the summer, we just started getting our gear lists together, and we have 3 of us. So, like one of the hardest things is just planning that logistics and planning your pack list, because you want like 1 or 2 guys having like things that overlap, but then you're flying too. So it's like you can only take so much. So
all 3 guys don't need a water filter.
No. So we had some kind of backups, like with water filters. We had someone with a gravity one, and then I had a Sterapin and things like that. So we're just like really comparing lists. And since this is totally DIY, we could not get help from the transporter on where we wanted to go. We literally got like, "Hey, I transport on this river. You have to tell me where you want to go." So that's where we started digging into the maps and like asking people like their opinions on things and stuff like that. But I'll turn it over to Dale, because there was one day he came up he lives in Billings, so he came down to Sheridan, and we kind of booked all of our...
It's only like less than 2-hour drive.
Yeah, so we booked so we got our tags and booked rental cars and did all these things that day, and then we just started going through the maps.
Yeah, I mean, we were really diving in, and I think there was somewhat kind of confusion that we thought we could only go down one side of the river. So we really made our plan to go down that side of the river, and like
from like the way the unit was split or something.
Yeah, the way that the unit split with where the bridge was, where we would be going in at, and stuff like that for the boat launch. We thought we could only go, to the west side essentially, and we had like, what was it, like 50 miles of river, which is still a lot, right? But you got to get outside the 5-mile corridor and all that type of stuff. Yeah. So we started like slowly picking it, and again, kind of going back to like what Luke was saying about floating. We're like, okay, well, we know the river floats this way. What if we start at one point, and then we all three took alpaca rafts as well, so that way we could potentially float down a few, like if we hunted for a few days, didn't see anything, float down a little bit more. So Tyler and I mean, Josh kind of helped out, and we all like kind of confirmed stuff, because I think at this point we started having a call like once a month, and then it went down to like once every 2 weeks, just kind of, making sure that our plan was like what everybody wanted to do, instead of like one guy planning it and then being like, all right, well, this is what we're doing type of thing. So we really played off of each other. And I mean, I know Tyler has quite a bit of hunting experience, but I don't think you have like that much like big backcountry stuff, you know what I mean? So that's where it was kind of like reliant on different ideas and all this type of stuff. So it worked out really well, but we made a plan of like where we wanted to go. And then the whole plan kind of, I guess, not so much went out the window, but yeah, it's funny how you make a big plan for 3 months, right, going into this, and then like it changes in the drop of the hat. Right?
Sometimes when you get to where you're actually hunting, or when you're there and it's in your face, and you start talking to people, and you're trying to make this plan 2,000 miles away,
right?
And then you get there and you're like, what were we thinking? I don't know what like.
And
what changed?
You have to like take people. And another thing is you got to take some people's advice, but you can't take everyone's advice. So you almost have to like get some advice and then run with that, because if you were going to like take every advice, you'd be changing the plan every other day. But we'll get to that. So kind of the travel plans is we're going to fly to Billings, because flights out of Billings are much better than Sheridan. So we all met at Dale's house. What is it? Probably 2 days before we were actually going to hunt. So we had where we would land, and then we were going to have one full day in Fairbanks, Alaska, and make sure we can get some of the stuff that we couldn't carry on the plane. Kind of give us a full
jet
day.
oil fuel and stuff like that. Yeah,
all that stuff, and then we would drive.
Went to Game and Fish, like talked to them about the unit, like kind of understood like all the different regs, as well as like we all bought like wolf tags, and just like just trying to get all those logistics and everything like that. And we really wanted to talk to like the biologists and everything to kind of really understand the area even better. I mean, again, like we've done a ton of research on it, but it's always good to have that firsthand knowledge, right? Like directly from Game and Fish.
Yeah, they kind of gave us a few like moose per square mile, things like that, and then we would ask questions about what is four brow tines, just making sure that we understood like reading, because they had like moose in there, and you could like.
Do you understand what this moose is?
Sometimes those brow tines are weird, where it's part of the main paddle and not. It might look like it has
brow tine,
but it's like technically it touches that main part of the paddle.
Yeah.
So we just wanted to clear all that stuff up, and it was fun. It was a cool, good experience. So we did that the first day, and then the next.
Was this all of your first moose hunts?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So that's even more challenging.
And to do DIY, right?
Yeah.
Like we definitely went for the gusto right off the bat.
That's awesome.
And then like Dale had like just been to Alaska for hunting like that spring, where he did like a DIY bear thing, but a little bit different. And then I think Josh, he had done a caribou thing before, but the more we heard about that story, he said they got really lucky and they killed their caribou in like a day and a half. So he was like in Alaska for a day and a half.
Right. Yeah.
So this was like our first like big, like going to be 10, 11 day hunt. So we had that whole first day off. And then the next day we got up pretty early and just started. This is when you drive the haul road, right?
Yeah.
So we got our rental truck. We went a little like there's some guys driving U-Hauls and all that good stuff, but we just went with like a standard truck just to make sure that you never know. I mean, at this point we're planning to kill.
It's more comfortable to be in a real car.
Yeah, especially when you're driving 7 miles and you're like, or 7 hours north on a gravel road essentially, and you just don't know what to expect. So we got extra fuel tanks and we did the whole 9 yards just to make sure.
Oh yeah.
So we take off and we get there. What time? Like the whole road going up was not bad at all. We made pretty good time, and I think we got.
Yeah, I mean, I think it took us about 7 hours or so to like get up there.
Did you stop at Coldfoot?
We stopped before Coldfoot because our put in was before that, and we stopped. And just like coincidentally, our like airboat guy was at the put in, like grabbing other hunters to pull out. So we're talking to him. He's like, yeah, there's no way you're going in because it was like 40-mile gust. And like his airboat was spinning. Like, because it was so windy.
Like getting pushed around the river. And we were supposed to go that afternoon.
Yeah.
Good call. Like we were supposed to meet him. And like Tyler said, right? Like the wind was gusting. He's like, yep, guys, no way we're going in today. And then like he just like walks away from us. And we're like, all right, well, I guess we're going to Coldfoot for the night.
I mean, I think that airboat pilots, drivers, whatever they are, I mean, they're maybe a few fries short of a Happy Meal already.
Yeah.
And if they are saying we're not going in, I mean, those things on flat water, no big deal. But when you're talking about current and a river, it's like, it's a little, I'm kind of an adrenaline junkie, and it's kind of sketchy in a good way. But they're awesome what they'll do. I thought it would be so bumpy, but they're like super
they just
smooth.
glide. Yeah. So we got to talk to him. We got to talk to the moose hunters that were coming off the boat, and it was like very doom and gloom. And we're like, oh no, like because
they didn't see a moose, kind of thing.
Yeah, like saw one moose or something, saw a cow.
Yeah, I think they saw a cow, and they're like, we thought we heard a bull grunting, type of thing.
And then
they were in there for like 9 days. Right?
Yeah, because like in Alaska, residents. So we went on like we're going in like the 9th or something. So like residents have like the 1st to the 5th, like 5 days early. Right. So these were resident guys, and so he had to go back and get the other guy because they had a lot of gear. And it was funny how you see like two like sides of a coin as those first two guys didn't leave camp. So that's probably why they didn't see any moose.
That probably has a lot to do.
And then the other one was younger guy, said he got into bulls. Like, so it was, so then our spirits were like relifted because we got to talk to RJ that night, and we had to get a hotel, or I don't know if you call it a hotel.
Like a hostel, more of a hostel.
Yeah, it definitely feels like a hostel.
Yeah. In Coldfoot.
The question, on the haul road, did you see any wildlife on the haul road?
No.
Okay.
No.
Yeah. We didn't either. Like, I've been up the road twice, and the first time I was, I'm thinking I'm in wild Alaska. Like, we're gonna be swerving, dodging moose and all kinds of animals left and right. I mean, we didn't see a bird. It was
like, it was a little discouraging.
It was super discouraging going in. I was like, okay, where is all the things? But there's so much ground up there. They don't need to be by the road.
100%, right? Like, I mean, it's so vast. Like, that's the thing with Alaska, right? In general, it's just so vast that, like, yes, there can be, quote, a lot of animals, but when you look at the overall, like, how large the landscape is, right? It's like just a blink of an eye type of thing of like where you're at. Even though I guess we did see one moose from the haul road the next morning.
Yeah, when we were driving to the boat ramp, we got like, we were like about to go like full bore because we saw
like
a cow.
That's a good omen.
Yes.
Yeah.
So we were then pumped. So it kind of got turned around where talking to RJ, we felt good about like it was only going to get better because kind of the conditions that we had was fall was like a full week to 10 days behind. So typically during the time, so we're going to start hunting the 9th, I believe, trying to go in the 8th, but ended up going in the 9th or maybe the 10th. Some between those 2 days, but it was probably a week to 10 days behind. At that time, there should be no leaves on the trees. When we got there, it was full on like color rush, like most beautiful, like looked beautiful. But RJ's like, yeah, this is not good for seeing moose because it's just so thick. Everything, like once we get to our hunting spot, it's like thick. So
yeah,
right.
We had lots of foliage.
Yeah, I'm sure DJ will splice in like a photo, but like the colors were like incredible. So the airboat ride in was pretty awesome.
Yeah.
Just seeing like where we're going. So What Dale was saying is about our plan felt like our plan changed. Is like we're at the boat ramp the day before we're going in, and the guy's like, "Where do you want to go?" And we're like, "Oh, we want to go this down river down here." And he's like, "Oh, well, everyone always goes that way." And we're like, "No."
What?
Yeah, we're like, "What?"
Oh,
He's
so
like,
you were going to go downriver, so you couldn't have floated back.
No, we were going to float.
Yeah, we were going to
away.
float further away.
Gotcha.
Yeah. So, but when he told us that, he's like, "Oh, you guys want to go that way," kind of thing, and we're like, "Oh no, we just like spent 3 months."
You guys are dumb.
And we're like, "Is that okay?" And he's like, "Yeah, like just no one ever goes that way." So it was like a little like.
So did you stick with the plan or did you adjust?
Oh, we had many conversations. We stuck with the plan.
Good for you.
Yeah, I mean, to an extent, right? Like we almost kind of like slightly changed the plan, and like we started to kind of plan around, okay, well, if most people go upriver, like let's start thinking almost like reverse engineering this, right? Like, and then think about that if only the quote locals and stuff like that go this way, you know, like how can we kind of, I mean, we definitely stuck with the original plan, but just slightly altered.
Yeah,
Gotcha.
I would say we
Gotcha.
had like plan A, B, and C, and then we actually kind of did it backwards. We went C, B, A, and we went to plan C first, which we had like that night.
Because it was the closest, or because
It was the closest, and there was 2 spots that we could have stopped, and it was between one that we wouldn't be able to backtrack because of the river, so we couldn't go to that. But where we ended up going was perfect in the sense of like where we were able to glass from. Like we picked this one based on the potential to glass.
so you could get some elevation.
Yes.
Yep.
That's key because that's hard to do, especially near rivers. Is usually super wooded.
Yeah. And the place that we chose, instead of like scrapping it and saying like we could have went 70 miles upstream and floated back, we hashed that out. We almost went with that plan and been like, but it's like, man, we just spent 3 months on this one area. We should just go in that area, which is, you know, the trade-offs were that other area was a lot more open, flat, a little harder to gain elevation, but seemed a little more moosey. Where we went was a little more mountainous, and you can't really tell that until you get on the ground. So as we're driving
Yeah, you
in,
can see topo lines and stuff, but
Yeah.
and Onyx is great, but sometimes like you get
it's a little deceptive.
well, yeah. I'm not saying they did it wrong at all, but in your mind, I think you're like, oh, those lines are not that close together on the topo lines, or maybe they're super close together. And I've been guilty of that a few times. Like, oh, I can make it over that hill.
Oh yeah.
No
Well,
chance.
it's funny. I mean, like we were talking about that. We're like, oh, we can hike from the river's edge up to these mountains because it's only like 1,500 foot vertical. Like we could easily do that every single day. And then like you quickly get there and you're walking in like muskeg and tundra and everything else, right? And super thick woods. That it's like, oh, that's actually going to take me 4.5 hours where it should only take me an hour and a half. You know what I mean?
Yeah, there's a couple lakes on there. Dale's like, we'll just walk to those lakes. And then like the first 2 days we're there, we're like, yeah, right.
Not happening. No, you get to the 2 mile mark on the muskeg and you're done.
We'll get there, but we'll get there, but we ended up at those lakes anyways.
Nice.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, so day one,
day
they
one,
drop you off.
Yeah, we all
You
get
see
to
the
go.
boat. You see the boat pulling away. What do you think?
Yeah, we all got to go in together because apparently we don't bring a lot of gear.
Yep.
And I'm over here like, these guys got way too much gear, and I have like one bag, and everyone's like, "That's all you brought?" And then that's the same thing that the guy at our RJ, our boat captain, said. Oh, you guys don't have very much gear. This is like twice as less as the last group. We're like, oh no. So yeah, we get to our spot, and again, it's a little overwhelming because the peaks are a lot taller. Everything's a lot bigger, a lot more like more trees than I expected to see.
Right.
And even our spot, like what became our glassing knob, was just a sheer cliff. And I'm like, oh no. So we're like, this is it. So we get dropped off, and I'll let Dale take it because we're like, RJ's only there for like 2 minutes before he's like, all right, see you later.
Well, see you later.
Yeah. So
go move the next people around.
I'll let Dale kind of tell the story of trying to pick a camp spot when we first got there. Cause he's like, does this look good? We get off, we look, we see flat ground. We're like, yep.
Just like a sandbar kind of thing.
Sandbar down the way, but it was more of like just a little bit of like shoreline. And then it was like step up above
Yeah.
above waterline, and
Right.
then it was flat.
And it looks flat, right?
Yeah.
And so again, like he's saying, like RJ's like, all right, gonna pick you up on the 19th. And we're like, hold on a second, no,
Yeah.
the 20th. And we're like, okay, like sounds good, the 20th.
Yeah.
So like
So confidence inspiring.
It's like he's like chunking our stuff off the boat, and he's like, all right, cool, peace, guys.
Yeah, he literally
And, like,
goes like, "Don't camp on the sandbar and make sure you're above the high water line," and then he left.
yeah, that's basically it. So like all of our gear is like sitting on the river's edge, and we, again, like Tyler's saying, like walk kind of up the bank, get on this little flat spot, and we're like start looking around, and it's literally nothing but like muskeg and just like water and muskeg, and we're like, all right, well this isn't gonna work. So we start just like pacing up and down the bank, and we finally find this one little spot that looks good to the deceptive eye, because we walk up there and there's like good big trees and everything like that, and we're like, oh, okay, we can just camp here. It's not that far from where we want to glass anyway. It's like half a mile, give or take. Like, let's just camp here. So we get our camp all like set up, everything ready to go. And I mean, it's like 10 a.m., right? So I mean, it's pretty early still, and it wasn't getting dark until 7:30, 8 o'clock that time of year. And we like get all our stuff, of course, like it's first day jitters and like happiness, right? We're like, all right, camp set, like let's get up the hill and start glassing. So like we ended up doing that. First day kind of went pretty slow all in all. We did not see a moose that first day. I guess we did see a moose on the
on the float in, yeah.
side end, which was kind of cool.
That's super cool.
Again,
Yeah,
like,
we felt good.
Like now we're starting to feel even better, right? Because we had just seen one on the Hall Road. Now we've seen one on our way to our location, like a mile away from our location. So we've got like we're here. This is happening. Everything. Glassed that whole rest of the afternoon. We called a little bit and stuff like that, but nothing seen from our glassing location.
How was the
Go back
weather?
to camp that night.
Weather, that was so we only had 2 days where it didn't rain, and that first day I think it didn't start raining until dark. So we had a pretty good day. It started raining like maybe mid-afternoon, so we were still feeling good. And the glassing knob that we were able to get to, we could see our tents below, and we could see a lot of country. So we were pretty pumped. Like when Dale was saying is like we were like ready to go. Like we were going to go to like a glassing knob that was a mile away, and as like just getting our feet under us, we're like going through muskeg and it's thick, and we're like, oh no, this is going to be way harder than we thought. So we're like, okay, we'll go to this glassing knob. So we went to the closer glassing knob day one, and when we could see a lot, we felt pretty good about it because it's like we could see 2.5 miles. In some places we could see 5 miles away kind of thing. So it was like,
right.
And we had
like overlooking the river valley and stuff like that. Right. So, and there was all these little pockets of openings. So like we felt comfortable that like that was a really good,
right,
or potentially like a very good glassing point. Right. Because everybody was saying like, don't shoot a moose more than a mile away from the river. So now we're kind of looking up and down river from where we're at. Cause we're literally on this cliff edge, like, Tyler was alluding to earlier, like over the river, but we can see downriver probably 4 miles or so. We can see upriver like 2 miles, and then across the river we can see a long ways with little patches of opening and stuff like that.
And we felt good about that because we had the alpaca, so like we weren't limited to one side of the river because we could jet across the river if we needed to.
Right.
So having those alpacas, we ended up not using the alpacas, but they were good comfort to be like if we needed to move,
for sure.
like we're not stuck.
For sure.
That was really nice. So we get up, we didn't like get up too early in the morning the next day, but
maybe like an hour after daylight, something like that.
So we got up onto our glassing knob.
Well, it's September, right? So the days, they're not stupid long, I guess, in September.
They're pretty long.
It was getting daylight at like 5:30. I mean, like pretty early still.
It was crazy though that it was like cutting off like 15 minutes on each side of the morning and night. Every day we were there. Like it was quickly going where it was like maybe 8:39 was like where you could not see anything. And then like by the end of it, it was like, it was quickly like getting shorter and shorter.
Like 6:30 at night. You know what I mean? Like we literally lost like an hour on both sides of our hunt
in 10 days.
Like 10 days.
Yeah. And then, so that night it rained all night and we woke up like about an hour we were up a little bit later than just because after that first day of just getting everything. So we then hiked back up to our glassy knob, and it's just pouring, right? Like it's been raining all day. So once we got up there, we had tarps and stuff. So we were smart about our glassy knob. We're like, okay, this is going to be like day one. We're going to try to take inventory, and we're not moving. So it was like the painfulness of like wanting to hike, but also being like, hey, this is the best way. It's just to let our eyes do the work.
Yeah, if you can see a bunch of country, that's definitely the best way.
So it was raining pretty darn hard all day too.
But you still had decent enough visibility.
Yeah, so like that day it didn't really sock in. We get in like later in the hunt, we got days where you can't see 10 feet. But that day it just rained all day pretty consistently, but we could see a mile. We had good
yeah, it was just that constant drizzle, like just all day. And then we ended up seeing a moose, like a cow, like by herself. And it was funny because, again, like, you know, you have these preconceived notions, but we're like, man, that looks like a really good place that a moose would kind of hang out. Like it was just this nice little green patch opening, willows all around, you know, like, I mean, that time of year, right? Moose are feeding on willows. So we're looking at all of that. And we're like, man, that looks like a really good place. And then out of nowhere, like an hour later, it's like, oh, and you know, before you see an animal in the landscape, you're always like glassing your butt off, and you're just like, man, like I'm just looking for a little twitch of an ear or something like that. And for all of us never hunting moose before, it's like, you don't know how large they are on the landscape until all of a sudden one steps out of the brush, and you're like, from a mile and a half away, you're like, oh, there's a moose with my naked eye.
Don't even need binos for that.
Exactly.
Yeah. So we were all pumped. We saw her, I want to say around 2:00.
Yeah.
And we got to watch her. She walked off and then bedded. And then it was just like incredible.
You could see her lay down.
Yeah, we watched her lay down. That's
nice.
Where he was talking like flick of the ear. It's like, oh, like if you were just glassing, it would be hard to see her, but like you could see her ear flicking. Like when we saw where she was bedded, it was like pretty crazy that big of an animal can still disappear like that.
Right.
And then later that evening, she got up, and it's just like crazy how they can cover ground because they're so giant. It's like they just walk through a
couple steps.
Yeah, they just walk through all that muck and mess like it's nothing. So that was kind of cool to see scale, and it also helped with kind of what Dale was saying. Is like that thing, she might have been a mile away at certain times, and you can see her. So it's like we're not missing moose, if you know. Like so, that was kind of encouraging. Then it's like if they're gonna be in the open or like you're gonna see them. So.
Yeah. So that's first day.
First full day.
Day.
Yeah. Second day. First. So it's like a half hour before last light. We're glassing, and like we can glass like all the way down, and then we would drop down to camp. So we started like getting all our stuff together, and then we started hiking back to camp, kind of in the dark. So. This is grizzly country, you know. That's always in the back of your mind because you got to be bear aware.
Not a lot of people go where you're at.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So we're walking in the dark, and I'll let Dale describe what he sees as we walk into camp.
Yeah. So I'm leading. Tyler's right behind me. Josh is behind him, and we're just kind of like heading down. And again, like I said, we're in this like really thick area, but it kind of opens up to where we ended up setting our camp up. And as I kind of break the brush to go into our opening, I look and there's just water everywhere. And when I say like there's water everywhere, like it's like halfway up my calf. Like when I step into it, water.
The water
everywhere.
came up that much.
Yeah. So not so much the water came over, but the water table and underneath the groundwater backed up.
Yeah, it just started like backing up.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden I turned Tyler and I'm just like, boys, we've got to move.
I will never forget his face.
like it was just like this very quick, like, oh my God, like this is about to get bad quick. Because I look and my tent was the worst of them. But I was sleeping in a Hilleberg. My Hilleberg was like half underwater, like legit.
Yeah.
Were those sleeping bags wet?
This is the funniest part.
So I unzip my Hilleberg and I look, right? And like I pulled some of my clothes out.
First thing he pulls out clothes just drenched. Like I cannot be wet. Yeah.
Luckily the other half of my clothes were in a dry bag and all this type of stuff like in my other dry bag. So like I knew that I still had clothes that were fine. But I look and my sleeping pad is like floating inside of my tent like a boat, and my sleeping bag is perfectly on
Come
top
on.
of it,
Yeah.
not touching the water at all.
The only and then so Josh's tent was set right beside Dale's, slightly above. He was using the Stone Glacier 2-piece, so it had like a good bottom to it.
Yeah.
And it actually kicked the water pretty good. Like, so Josh's stuff wasn't totally soaked, but some of his stuff was soaked in the low end of it. So he kind of got lucky. You know, if you were just smart like me and you picked a high spot,
you had no.
My little
and by a high spot, like literally he was 4 inches above where we were.
6 inches. Yeah. I was just a little bit above underneath like a big giant tree, and my stuff was dry. But I feel like so terrible because like I'm like, I don't know what we're going to do, because it was also kind of scary because we actually skipped over the part where I forgot the big tent.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, I brought the nest to a Red Cliff instead of the Red Cliff.
Whoops.
Yep. So we had a tarp as a backup plan. But so anyways, where that like tarp canopy that we had was another high spot. So, you know, then we just start consolidating. So Josh's tent was dry. So we got Josh's tent up there, and then Dale's stuff moved into that. And we essentially got his tent like taken down, and we're like, we're going to have to deal with this in the morning. But like where their tents were is like 5 inches of water, like not exaggerating. They're
just sitting on top of the ground.
Yes.
That wasn't there before.
Was not there.
That was not there. That it was like bone dry.
Even when we came,
that's wild.
Even when we came back a couple days later, the spots where their tents were dry. It just had rained so much that night.
Wow.
That it came up, and like, so again, in our heads, we're like, are we going to have to like call RJ? Because it's like, this could be, because it was at that point probably like 40 degrees.
That could be kind of a deal breaker.
40 degrees, raining, and I mean, 100% humidity. So like the cold was cold.
Oh,
right.
Man.
And it's not like you're drying stuff out, right? So like if my sleeping bag would have gotten wet, there's no way that you're going to ever dry that out over the next, 3 or 4 days, right? And then like, how do you sleep in a soaking wet sleeping bag when it's, like Tyler was saying, getting down to mid 30s at night, like that just doesn't happen.
Yeah. So like on this trip, I feel like I've like read a bunch of like warming drills, and Stone Glacier has a good one, and Sitka has a good like a good video, or John Barklow talking about like how to get warm when you get wet. And it's just like you sleep yourself dry, like you don't get out of your puffy stuff, and you just get in your tent, and like the heat will help. Like that will help if you have like a puffy sleeping bag. So those were all going through my mind on this trip. And so it actually ended up being okay. Josh and Dale shared a tent that night. And I think I was like, you guys might not like my solution, but we're going to camp up there. And meaning to our glassing
just
spot.
Stay there. Yeah.
Yeah.
And Dale's like, yes, like no hesitation. Like
it was flat enough to.
Oh yeah. Our glassing place was pretty awesome.
Phenomenal. Yeah.
It was also, it had like a weird, like remnants of like an old, like someone had hunted there before. Like, and that was their camp spot. It was kind of cool. That was like, oh, this is like really old, like almost looked like a bench rest. Like someone just like sat there and would hunt there.
That's cool.
So we, the next, and it's like very thick and steep. So it took us, but we had all of our gear. So we left a lot of gear behind. And now we're just more or less like, if you were going to elk backpack hunt, all of like
that. Kind of like set up spike camp.
Yeah. So all of the niceties that we brought, we're like, okay, well, we're not hiking that up. It's it's probably like, it's not quite a half mile, but it was just crazy thick with alders and like straight up. So we ended up moving camp up there. I think this day it's raining all day, this day too, if I remember right. So we get everything moved, and then we're just doing the same plan as the day before.
And then it actually got sunny that afternoon because my tent was able to dry out. Because like as soon as we got up there, like I set up my tent because it's soaking wet still, right? Yeah. And of course it rains all night and everything else. But luckily we got like an hour and a half of sunlight, and it just like I was like, I'm just gonna let my tent kind of bake from the outside in, right, and dry itself out. So we ended up doing that. Everything worked out well. And I think
we saw a moose
did not
that day.
see a moose, or did we see a moose?
That's when we saw our first bull.
All right.
Okay, that's right.
So once we got everything moved, we did the same thing where we're camping in one spot. We definitely did get good sun because I remember it drying out, but I think we set the tarps up again, and we got a fire going. So like now it's like, whew, things are good.
Yeah, we're living.
Yeah, we're living. And that was when pretty much the same spot as the cow, a little bitty bull, like I think he had 3 points on each side.
Yeah.
Or no, he had 4 points on one side because we're like, hey, look at that 4-point brow tine. But he was a little bitty guy, so we got to watch him, and then that was kind of the conclusion of day 3. Nothing too crazy. So,
yep.
I think
other than having to camp and everything.
Yeah. So, and then day 4 was the slowest day that we had, I think.
Yep.
Day 4.
Yeah, we literally
just
did not move.
Yeah.
I mean, just sat there the entire day.
Nope. That was the day. It did rain really hard all day because I remember we had the Stone Glacier tarp up. Josh had that little orange tarp up, and then we had a fire all day. And we could still see. It wasn't socked in for the most part, but it rained pretty hard all day.
Yeah.
So, so that day was kind of a bust, and I'm like, I'm a hiker, and I'm like, after that day of like it being terrible, I'm like, Dale, Josh, anyone can come with me, but I'm showing them on the map. I'm like, I'm gonna go to this glassing spot, and it was like a mile and a half from camp.
Yeah,
a couple thousand feet elevation gain because there's not a lot of elevation, but it's like there you're going to the top, so it's like you're either at like 1,000 feet or you're at 3,000 feet kind of thing. So I'm like, no one has to go. I just want to see some new country. You guys can do this, but so
like
Dale,
a mental health day.
Yeah, I was like, I need to get out and move. So, and this was the most beautiful day of the entire trip. It was just gorgeous. So we get hiking. We're going. So this is day 5. Josh decides he's going to stay on the glassing spot, make sure that he can see everything below.
Yep.
And then we go to this glassing spot. I mean, this was like the best day. It was like so beautiful. So we got lots of cool photos and all this stuff. And then it was right around 2:00. We decided to move down the ridge to like the farthest part that we would be from camp. And then we're glassing there, and all of a sudden Dale goes, "There's a moose," and like screams. And I'm like, where? And it's like probably 1,500 yards, almost a full mile away. And it is just like what you come to Alaska for. And it's just this mondo giant. Like you can see, like, because the sun's shining, you can just see, like,
it's like 2 white satellites hanging out,
just
right?
like reflecting.
100%.
Yeah.
This thing is ginormous. So we got on this bull twice, and we want to say, like, because we got phone scope video and stuff, and like we are trying not to over exaggerate it, but he's like a mid-60s bull.
Okay.
So like big. For like we're like pumped kind of thing.
Yeah,
you're confident he's over the minimum of 50 inches.
Oh, he's way over. Way over.
Yeah. So we're thinking he's like mid 60s, and we had told ourselves we would not kill a moose that's over 2 miles. Well, we hiked to a glassing spot that was 2 miles, hoping to glass kind of back towards the river. Well, we saw him a mile farther than that. So,
oh man, that would be hard.
Yeah. So one of RJ's our boat captain's other advice was he's like, don't glass where you won't go to hike because you're going to see a moose there. So of course we see this huge moose, and like, we weren't really even trying to glass that spot. We just happened to glass there, and that's where he was.
I mean, of course you're going to look, right?
For sure.
So I think we sat there for 45 minutes and we're like not going. And then I'm like, well, it's day 5. And then I'm like, I think I finally like had like a moment because I knew Dale wanted to go, and I looked at Dale and I go, Dale, if you told me to go kill that moose, I'd go kill that moose. So let's go kill that moose, because Dale was first shooter.
Right.
So we just we're like, okay, so we're going to give it a go, because it's probably like 3 miles. Josh, if you're listening, I think we told you it was only 2.5, but it was like 3.5 away from the river.
Oh man.
So I'm like, dude, that's such a big bull that it's going to take us 5 days to do it, but I don't care. To hike him out.
Yeah,
like,
I mean,
if you killed that bull, I'd be pumped.
Yeah, and we basically told ourselves, like, as we're talking about this, like Tyler said, like, we literally sat down, we're glassing this bull, we're trying to call him. He's with a cow. Like, I don't know if you really said that, but like, he's like kind of tending this cow and stuff. And Tyler and I are going back and forth, and we're like, okay, let's just say that we can kill him. It's 4:00 now. We have like 2.5 hours, 3 hours till dark. But like, if we kill him, we still have 4 days to get him out, right? Like it's probably going to take every bit of 3 to 4 days of getting him out, just because we know like where he's at, like how far it is.
Right.
Like it's going to absolutely be brutal, but like you have to at least go for it, right?
Yeah,
like
sure.
This is what we came here for.
Yeah, this unit was fully bowed in, all the ribs, all the meat. Like, so it was
You can't debone.
can't debone.
Yeah.
Not at all. So
You can't even get a rear quarter out.
no. So you
That's like 200 pounds.
Well, so yeah, like one thing we learned, right, is like you can take you just have to leave
some meat.
half of the
Yeah. So
meat
you
or
could cut
some
the
of
ham.
meat attached to the bone.
Okay.
So you can cut like half of the ham meat off of it.
Got
you know,
it.
to at least
Just as
make
long
it
as like don't
somewhat
cut to the bone.
manageable.
So you could take that
Right.
whole front like sirloin off if you want to.
Gotcha.
So,
Yeah.
anyway, so then we just decided to go after it. We're bombing off, and he was a full mile away. So when we get down into his level, though, it's like this burn area, so it looks wide open.
Right.
You get there, everything's 10 foot tall and thick. So
Yeah.
unfortunately, we kind of made the like where we thought was a higher spot than what was not very much higher than what he was. So we just never got on him.
Never found them.
Never found him. And he was with the cow, not responsive. We thought we might have heard some sticks break, but
Yeah. Kind of walking around.
yeah, so we don't know.
Brutal.
It just ended with us being a mile now from the glass. So now we're like 3.5 miles from camp, and it's now starting to get dark. So we hike all the way back up this giant glassing spot and we get back to camp.
What are you using for navigation? Like
Onyx.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Can you see? Is the canopy like dense enough, or
No,
could you
you'd
see
be
the
fine.
high points? Like,
Yeah, there's no
fine.
way you could get.
You
lost.
weren't disoriented.
Yeah,
at all.
there's
Cool.
no way you could get lost. There's certain points where you would have to like check yourself,
Sure.
but like the river was pretty clearly the drainage, and you could not like. There's not
Gotcha.
really a way that you could get lost.
Right on.
Right.
So we hike back. We get back. We're pumped. Josh didn't see anything that night, but we're on cloud 9, right?
Yeah.
We're
You
like,
saw a huge bull. Like
Yeah.
that's your plan now.
yeah. So we're all planning on going back the next day. Josh comes up with us. We get up there. It's rainy this day, not as nice, but we're up there. It takes a while to get there, so we probably didn't even get to the glassy knob until like the final glassy knob until probably 10 in the morning, maybe 11.
Yeah, give or take. Yeah.
And then it wasn't very long. We were there and we saw another bull, just like right off the bat.
Same.
Well,
same,
Dale
like, far away.
spotted cows
Well,
right off the bat.
Yeah, we started seeing cows. It was funny. It was like it would rain, and then as soon as it would break, like moose would start
everywhere.
popping up. So we saw like a cow and a calf, and then it would like rain a little bit, and then in another direction we'd see a cow and a calf, and then it rained a little bit, and then all of a sudden like this bull like appears out of nowhere, and he's right in line with that first lake that we had talked about earlier.
That we weren't going to go
like,
to.
This is
Right.
one of the ones that I wanted to go to, but like then you start looking at it and you're like, there's no way. And this freaking bull pops up, and Josh is like, "Hey, there's a bull right here."
Yeah.
We're like, "Okay, cool." And I think he was like 1,400 yards away, something like that, when we first saw
It's
him.
100 yards closer than the last one.
Yeah, and a better direction too, which is actually
Yeah,
good.
exactly. Like he was in line with us in relationship to the river. So now he's only
Gotcha.
He's
mile and a half ish.
Okay.
yeah, probably
from the river?
probably right at 2 miles
Got it.
to the river, because you'd have
Yeah.
to like
Yeah.
weave through there.
Yeah.
But he's in a good spot, so we're like, oh yeah, well,
Game on.
this is awesome. So
Yeah.
Dale, what did we name your call?
What
was her name?
Oh my gosh, now I just forgot. If you wouldn't have asked, I would know.
It wasn't Linda, was it? No.
No, it wasn't Linda. But that's funny that you said that because that's what I had in my mind.
Yeah.
Beatrice.
Beatrice. Yes. Beatrice is
Yes,
the name
Beatrice.
of the moose call.
That's awesome.
But
So
I just named her Beatrice.
yeah.
So you're trying
so
to
anyway-
let Beatrice call him in.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. So like we're like, all right, we're just gonna like yell at him type of thing. So I start calling. Somehow I don't know how I got elected as the only person that called on this moose hunt the entire time. But like I just start calling like crazy, and like I do it one time kind of like softly, I guess you could say, just to kind of gauge his response. Nothing. I get a little bit louder, and then on the third time I kind of like get pretty loud with it, and immediately like you see like his whole demeanor change, and he like homes in on us.
Oh, really?
Like crazy
Yeah,
that
And
we're
y'all
like-
are like, yes.
We're like, okay, game on. And I call again, and like instantly he's on one side of the little lake pond that we're looking at him at, and he turns and he walks straight towards us, and he walks across this freaking lake.
yeah.
like
he just
just-
like
I mean,
I would
okay.
say swimming, but he just is so tall that he just walks through it.
Yeah,
Right.
he's just
Yeah.
walking
Right.
through it. and he's like on a line, and every time like he'd walk for 45 seconds or so, and he'd stop again, and as soon as he'd stop, I'd give him a call.
Yeah.
And then that would instantly like fire him back up, and he'd start walking again.
So,
and at one point, like he gets to like 1,000 yards. We're looking at him pretty well, or I guess it might have been like 1,200 yards. And we're looking at him and everything, and we're like, well, he looks like he's going to be kind of pushing it.
Yeah, he's got
like
3 brow tines. We were able to confirm that he had 3 brow tines.
Oh, no.
And
so he's got to be at least 50 then.
In preparation for this trip, we knew we all wanted to shoot a mill scope, and we all did like the conversion of so that we could measure these moose.
On a first focal plane.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that we could measure all of these moose like down to the inch. So we had a conversion chart.
So at 1,000 yards, you know how many mils wide he is.
At 1,000 yards, I still remember the chart. He had to be 1.4 mils wide for him to be legal. So as Dale's calling them, Josh has a spotter that's a mil scope, and then everyone else is like, so we're just, as he's getting closer, we're getting better and better readings on him. But we did confirm he had 3 brow tines, so he had to be legal wide for us to shoot him. And he, right off the bat, was not like, we knew that he was substantially smaller than the one we saw the day before. But we knew he was still a good moose. Like, we're all like, man, thing is pretty.
Hey, a legal moose is a great moose up there.
Yeah. So now he's at like 1,000 yards, and Dale just keeps calling, and he just keeps coming. There was a point when he was trotting towards us.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah, he was literally like coming hard on a string.
So,
and he ends up getting, I mean, again, like, every 100 yards, we're like looking at him, like doing the conversion. And it was crazy because sometimes we'd have him at like 52 inches wide, and then you'd look at him and he'd be 48 inches wide or 49 inches
just
wide.
On the line.
Yeah.
So it's literally just going back and forth of like, okay, is he legal? Oh man, he looks like he's legal at that point. And then he kind of turns slightly, and it's like, okay, does that point go all the way to there? Like, it kind of looks like a point kind of flares a little bit. You know what I mean? So you're really trying to get it right. And he ends up getting to like 550, I think, something like that. And
we're like set up, like we could have shot him from right there. Because it was like,
you're ready to roll.
Yeah. It's like, I mean, we had great where we could get prone, and it would have been a comfortable shot because everything was perfect for us. Cause it was like, he's coming, he's like slightly quartering to going broadside this whole way to us. And like, at this point, it's like we could be on a pack, laid down, and just have like perfect shooting conditions as well. Cause we're above him.
Oh man.
Yeah. So he ends up coming into like 550, and he just like stops, and he gives us like every look that you could ever ask for. And I mean, as much as I was like first shooter and trying to twist these guys' arms, like, I will say that they did very well of like keeping it like in their head, like this dude has to be it, right? Because again, with game and fish laws, right, that even if he would have been 49.9 inches,
it's not enough.
He's not enough.
And we still have to pack him out.
Kill one that small, right? That you still have to pack out everything and then literally just turn it over to the game wardens, right? So we had told ourselves like we don't want to shoot one that's under 52-ish, if you will, but just because like
just
that
to
way
give yourself a buffer.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So he ends up coming in, and like these guys are just like he's not legal, and it's kind of like majority rules, right? 2 out of 3. If he's not legal, we're not shooting him type of thing. So we let him end up kind of walking off, and he kind of circles around us, and we lose him. I think we end up seeing like 2 more cows, and then all of a sudden, like 4 hours later, I think it was, like another bull pops up, and we end up finding out that it's that same bull that he made this big loop, and he gives us another look.
We got real excited because he popped up right where the big bull was the day before. So we got pretty excited for a minute because he popped out right by a cow, and we're like, oh, bull with cow, like that's got to be him. But then he like beds down,
started calling.
He started coming back.
Comes again,
and then he gave us so now it's actually kind of nice out because it kind of cleared up for a little bit. There was no wind. He's now head on walking at us right at exactly 1,000 yards. So we're both shooting 338 RPM. And then strategically we had the third Josh was shooting 300 Weatherby because it's like super short barrels, good for hiking through thick stuff. But then we wanted to have a 300 Weatherby just in case we had
out.
Yep, just in case we had to reach out. So that was kind of the strategy on the gun selection going into this thing. And so we were all set up on that. It was a Mark V Apex, and it's just like the ultimate shooter. So like we were dry firing and doing the whole 9 yards, and he comes out right at 1,000 yards, picks his head up, could not be more front on for us to measure, just like pretty much asking us to shoot him kind of thing. And there was no wind, and it was kind of cool. Dale got to do a bunch of dry firing, so just felt super confident that if
awesome.
we get a moose in, like things are going down kind of thing.
Right.
So.
Yeah, 100%. And I think our final assessment on this bull was that he was like 49.5 inches wide.
He's either 49.5 or 50.5. And I still think that.
Well, you made the right call because you don't want to be on the under.
Oh, no. So.
Right. Yeah, I mean, that kind of happened throughout the day. We like basically watched him all the way until essentially dark. Right. Yeah. I mean, and he was like at 700 yards at dark. I mean, like, kind of still within shooting range. And it was just, I mean, it was a really cool day. Like all in all, I think we ended up seeing 7 moose that day, which we were like,
so they're moving around. Stuff's happening.
Things are starting to turn. Because at the beginning, it was kind of like the leaves are starting to slowly fall off. Every day there's less leaves kind of thing. So the next morning we get up kind of first light, but it was so socked in at first light that we just glassed. So our goal was we always glassed back at camp at first light. So because instead of hiking in the dark to that glassy knob, it's like, well, we'll glass this knob just in case there's one close.
Sure.
And then we hike up in the middle of the day when it's not as like prime time. So it's socked in though, right from the beginning on day. So this is morning of day 7 now, because he was day 5 was the big bull, day 6 was the small bull. Now we're on day 7. So it's day 7. Josh decides to stay. He's going to glass the bottom spot just because it was foggy, and we've kind of figured that that part right by the river actually cleared better throughout the day than when we were up on top in that back valley.
Sure.
So then me and Dale hiked up to that back valley, and we're socked in for like most of the day on that one. Yeah,
like
it was
6 hours.
Yeah, just sitting there laughing.
I mean, you can't see 50 yards.
Did y'all bring a deck of cards or anything?
No, we did not.
Oh man.
Oh, we played a lot of Would You Rather, or like Dale obviously gets to hunt a lot for his job, so I'd be like, Dale, would you rather kill a moose and then fill 0 whitetail tags? And then he'd be like, well, of course I'd rather kill a moose. And then I'd be like, what if those 3-4 whitetails were all booner? Like we would just go through this endless game.
What's the trade-off?
Yeah, what's the trade-off?
Yeah.
So we did that a lot. And then that day was the day that we saw the 2 cows feeding in the lake way far on the back lake.
I thought the day that we saw just the grizzly.
Grizzly bear.
Oh, you saw?
Yeah, that's where we're setting up for that.
Yeah.
No, we saw, but that was the day we saw the 2 cows, the cow and the calf, like playing in the water and eating in the water. And then Dale spots a grizzly bear, which is
giant.
How far?
Like
exactly where the big bull and the cow were.
Yeah.
2 days.
Okay.
I mean, we might have walked 20 yards from the spot that he was eating blueberries.
Yeah.
So like when we went on the
And
stock, we were just
watched
down in
him
there
for 4 straight hours, and he never moved more than 150 yards in either direction, and he was just mowing blueberries down.
Yeah.
And I mean, just a
Blueberries
giant
were awesome.
They
interior,
are good.
Yeah.
like
They're so
giant
good.
interior bear.
Yeah. Like if we were if we were residents, like we had a resident friend that we saw at the beginning of the trip and then on the back end of the trip, and it's like, yeah, that would have been a good bear to go after kind of thing. So we wish that there wasn't you have to be a resident or you have to have a guide. So for grizzly bear in Alaska. So So it was cool to get to watch him from afar. That was fun. And that was kind of just like the conclusion of that day, was that we got to watch the grizzly bear all day. Yeah.
So you're not completely bored. Like that's like a wildlife spotting checklist thing, like grizzly.
Yeah, I mean that was Tyler's first grizzly that he'd ever seen in the wild.
In the wild,
right?
yeah. I hadn't
awesome.
seen one. I don't count like driving in the car or anything, but
sure.
So that was a cool one for sure. So that day, kind of
next day, we went back up there. Josh comes with us.
We're on
again,
like
and
day 9-ish or so now.
No,
huh?
so now we're on day 8.
Yeah, we're on day 9.
Okay.
Well, day 8, because we actually end up hunting 11 days too. So day 8, we go back, and Josh goes, and that was the day we're like, let's go to the even farther glassing knob to get a different angle.
like all we got to do is just cross this little valley right
Yeah.
here and then get up on that side. It's only 500 yards away, straight line distance.
Yeah.
And then
So
it became, yeah. So we ended up getting up there, it like instantly gets sucked in, raining, all that, and we're like, oh my god.
yeah,
like,
we ate
it's
breakfast
just
there.
another one of those days. And I think it finally kind of started to break around noon, give or take.
Yeah, because we ate a late
And,
breakfast. We were all finishing up breakfast, and then we like spread out on that thing because it wasn't as good a vantage point as we were thinking. But we could see.
Right.
The reason we went there is because we could actually see into the next valley back towards the river. So it was another good vantage. Like if we hadn't been seeing so many moose in our little valley, it probably would have been a good spot to actually go to see stuff closer to the river. But
Right.
So
I start calling, and I think it wasn't 5 or 10 minutes after I started calling, Josh is like, holy crap, there's a big bull.
yeah.
And look back, and this is the second time that we ended up seeing that very big bull that we had seen on day 5 or 6, whatever day that was. And now he's an additional mile further away.
Yeah.
And it's like, oh my gosh.
At one point, though, he probably would have been pretty close to that other glassing knob just based on how he was moving through there.
Right.
But by the time we saw him, he was like right at 1,500 yards, and then he was quickly 2 miles away.
Yeah.
We got good phone scope footage of him that day, though.
And as we're doing it, like another bull starts, like he shows up, and it's another like no doubter shooter bull. But now it's like both of these bulls are kind of pending this cow. I mean, obviously the cow's like starting to become into estrus or getting close to it, right? So like there's kind of 2 bulls that have kind of pushed into this, and they're kind of walking around each other. And but I mean,
that's awesome to get to see that.
And the cow was super unique. We knew this was the big bull because that cow was uniquely blonde. Like she was very, very blonde on her back. And she stuck out like a sore thumb. Like she was like almost golden blonde on her back.
That's cool.
Yeah. And she was very, very noticeable, different than the other cows.
So there's no play on these.
No play. No.
Yeah, absolutely no play. We
Except for when Dale.
Back down.
I was gonna say when Dale decides to inReach me, like, we can get a float plane in here, no problem. Those lakes. Like, Dale, dude, no.
I'm like, so it's funny. A buddy of mine guides about, I guess, 100 miles or so north of where we were at. For an outfitter and stuff, and I'm like inReaching him, and I'm like, how hard would it be to get a float plane into one of these lakes? Like, we could go kill this bull, and then it would only be like 500, 600 yards to this lake. And he's like, I mean, it could happen, but it's going to cost you $2,000, right? To like order this float plane. Obviously, that did not happen, but like that's where our mind is, right? Like we're on day 8, and like we haven't filled a tag yet. Yeah, we're starting to kind of go into desperation mode in a way, you know, of like, hey, we really want to at least fill one of these tags. So yeah, it was just, it was kind of crazy. And anyway, I think, did we end up seeing, I think we saw a cow or something.
We saw like a cow or something. We ended up
going back to our original glassy knob.
And then no avail. Nothing really popped up that evening. We got because I think it might have socked in towards the end of the day and just kind of rained all the rest of the day.
So
now that's
so I was just trying to move us along here. So what? Yeah. So we're on day 9er.
Yeah, day 9er was our last day to go to a glassy knob that wasn't at camp, just based on like logistics.
Sure, like if you kill one far in.
Yeah. So
what's the point?
We'll make this day a little bit quicker. So this day was just me and Dale. Josh is going to stay at the bottom spot, like the original spotting spot by camp. So we go back up, and this whole day was like the worst day for rain and fog.
No.
Like we can't glass until 2:30.
Sucks to end it that way.
Yeah,
right?
or even later, right?
Yeah.
Like, I mean, I feel like we had like 8 to 10 hours
of
of just being
sitting there.
stocked.
Brutal.
Nothing.
I think this is
It
where
would
my
break
toes
for
got
just
frozen.
a minute. Yeah, it would like break for a minute. You'd get excited, and then it would just sock back in.
Yeah.
And Tyler and I are just cutting up and like still, you know, just having a good time and everything, right? But like at the same time, you're almost like starting to reflect on the hunt at that point because you're like on day 9, you know, and you feel like tomorrow's the last day, all this, and like this is the last time that we're gonna hunt this area. and this rainbow, like it starts to kind of break and a rainbow like comes out and it literally touches the valley like right below us. And I jokingly turned to Tyler and I said, well, that's exactly where a big bull is going to come out here as soon as this stuff breaks.
Yeah, we're like,
and
it's gonna be at the end of the rain bowl is what we were trying to, like, we were like, again, just,
yeah,
like,
you're just trying to keep your
play on
hopes up.
words, right? Yeah, exactly.
You've been socked
And
in
about
for a
an
day.
hour later, like an hour later, it starts to kind of burn off. I think I had made a call like right as it was burning off. And literally all of a sudden I just look, and with my naked eye again, and this is 1,200 to 1,400 yards away, like I see this bull cruising up the valley exactly where I'd pointed at the end of the rainbow.
Nice.
Like couldn't have, like it just comes out of nowhere, like appears. Bull comes out. I call at him. He doesn't even respond. Tyler and I look at each other and we're like, all right, are we going to do this or what? And he's like, yep, let's do it. And we just bail off and just start going for
straight
it.
down.
Nice.
So, yeah,
Like,
we just running
straight down the mountain. Like if we can get to the lake before he can get there, hopefully, right?
Yeah.
Which obviously does not work when you're chasing these giant animals. But like if we can get to the lake before he does, maybe we can intercept him or at least get close enough that if we start calling. Needless to say, that didn't really work. As soon as we got down there, we got
The
about
wind was
300
wrong,
yards
yeah.
from the lake, and the wind just like completely swirled on us and starts blowing right towards the lake where he should have been.
And you can't just make a big loop like you would with like an elk or something
No.
because it's so
It's impossible.
muscat. It's just like,
so hard to move.
yeah. So
Yeah.
Oh.
So needless to say, that kind of like, doesn't really happen. And now we're like at the bottom and we're kind of thinking like, do we hike back up to the top or do we just like kind of hunt our way back to camp along this drainage and stuff? So that's what we ended up doing. It took way longer than we ever would have thought. It was like 1.5 miles back to camp now, maybe close to 2 miles. And I think that it took us 4 hours.
it took us a while. So like,
oh man.
because like we were thinking about hunting the bottom out, and then it was just like, I'm like, let's go up like 3/4 mountain because it was like it was muskeg all the way through all that stuff. It was just gross. Like you're either on top of it or you're falling like a knee deep
through it
kind of thing.
Yeah.
So we ended up getting back to camp like right at last light. So
yeah. So we're going on to day 10 and we're like, okay, well, we can only hunt near camp. And so I guess we should back up. On that same day, Josh saw a cow and had like a small bull come in.
Oh yeah, and he actually we
river.
probably think he saw the bull that we were getting on because
exactly.
of the angle of where he saw it come across like 1,000 yards from him. He went up that drainage, so we actually probably saw the same bull. So it's like good things are like moving.
Yeah.
So because we were 2 miles away and we saw the bull come out the other side, kind of thing.
But we're starting to touch these like 1 in a million odds now.
Yeah, because now we're on day 10. Last full day
of our 10-day hunt.
Yeah.
And we're like, okay, we're gonna hunt at camp from the Glassy Nub. Josh had a good day yesterday of seeing stuff, so we're just gonna now it's just like if there's anything in our little like right by the river, like we'll be good. And but I think that day,
an absolutely gorgeous day.
Yeah.
Like I don't think that this was one of the only days that it didn't rain.
Yeah.
Like absolutely gorgeous day the entire day, and we did not see a single moose the entire day. It was just like a lot of just like sitting around. I mean, I think at times like we would trade off of like going and taking a nap and like, you know what I mean? It was just like a very slow, kind of.
Sure.
You're coming
every
down,
hour
right?
got more somber, and we're like, oh my gosh.
Right. Everything's coming to a close.
Yeah.
Yeah. So as we're there that day, we kind of start like making a plan of, okay, like I'm texting back and forth on my Zolio with RJ, the boat captain. And I'm like, hey, like, when do you want to come pick us up tomorrow? He had said in the morning, and he's like, well, I should be there around like 10 a.m., give or take. And we're like, okay. So we start kind of like backfilling, like, all right, if we get up, at daylight, we can get our stuff
push
together.
this.
As long as we start heading down the hill at like 8:30, I think it was, like we'll get all of our gear down the hill and we'll be ready for pickup at 10. We're like, okay, cool. So we all go to bed, it is what it is. I wake up the next morning and I don't think like we'd even like really talked, it's just kind of that morning that like you're just packing up camp and like everybody's kind of doing their own thing. And I'm over there like playing music on my phone and just kind of like, trying to, I guess, make the most of it, right?
Right.
And this
you had a cool,
kind of like,
you saw moose.
Yeah.
You saw a bear.
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Like we had a really cool experience and like adventure. And, I mean, we're still all friends at the end of a 10-day, like,
yeah, no one killed anyone.
That's a
hunt
thing for sure.
and everything, right? Yeah, like 100%. Like I could go do this again with these guys. And I'm there, and I had just turned off my music for some reason. I don't know. I was just like, and I'm starting to kind of like pack away my sleeping bag, I think, at this point. And it's 8 a.m.
Right around 8. And it was one of those
30.
mornings where it was like frost, cold, crisp, zero wind. I almost felt like I was in the whitetail woods because it was like there's no movement.
Still.
You could hear everything. And I'll let Dale take it from here. But like, it was just like one of those days where it's like I feel like you could hear a pin drop.
Yeah.
Oh, 100%. Right. And like I said, it's roughly 8 a.m., 8:30, something like that. And all of a sudden I swear that I can hear this like, oh,
yeah. But the water and the river makes that same noise. Cause I think I heard the same thing. I go, no way. I just keep packing. And then I think, and then all of a sudden I just hear Dale like yell, there's a moose.
So I walked over and I kind of like looked and I'm like looking down because like you said, that overhang was like the way that the water kind of hit it would make weird noises at times.
Yeah.
So I'm like looking down because this noise is getting louder as I get to the cliff edge or whatever. And I'm like, well, can it be right below us? And I look up, and where we first saw the cow on the first day, or the second day, I guess it was, I just like see a moose just standing there with my naked eye. And at this point, like, I'd packed away my binos, I packed away everything.
Oh, no.
So I go running back to my tent because like there's a moose there, and I grab my binos, I come running back and I throw up my binos, and instantly like I see that it's a bull and it's like a definite shooter, at least in my mind, right? And I remember Josh saying like, oh crap, he sees a bull. And I'm like, guys, like there's a moose right here.
Yes, that's
and
why we're here.
running over. And they're like, no way, and like throw it up, and instantly we just kind of all looking at each other. And I think I said something to the point of like, are we gonna freaking do this? And they're like, yes, let's go.
I vividly remember that. And
you need to be heading for the boat in 30 minutes.
Pretty much 30 minutes. I vividly remember Dale saying, are we going to do this? Those were the words you used. And I think I used some choice words, and I said, something, yes. We are. Something towards the lines of, yes, we are, kind of thing. Yeah. And I think I yelled at Josh because at this point, he's probably 800-900 yards out there. It's crazy that we could hear him. I go, Josh, grab your gun because he has 300 Weatherby. Right. We have a great rest. Josh could not get to his spotter, so Dale went and grabbed his spotter. We get the gun all set up. We confirm 4 brow tines. It's like the rest is history on this.
Yeah. So now you're legal.
Now he's like 900 yards. It's like we would like to get him in that 600 to 700 yard for 300 Weatherby's got plenty of energy to kill anything, but just again. We wanted to get him a little closer, so Dale starts calling. And, like, what happens next is just, like, meant to be kind of thing. Like, it just has to be meant to be.
100%.
So,
yeah, like you're saying, like, I run back, like, as all this mass confusion and, like, everybody's trying, like, got their job and, like, getting things. I run back. I grab my call. I come back. Josh is getting the gun set up on the bipod, everything. Like, Tyler's like watching him through the spotter, like confirming 4 brow tines.
I got 4 brow tines. I was like, Dale, your shooter. Just I want you to be comfortable. Come confirm that you see 4 brow tines, like what I see.
Yeah,
right.
So he confirms, and now he's on the gun.
I start calling
with Beatrice.
Yeah, I start calling instantly again. Like second call, you see his demeanor change, and he kind of like hones in on us, and he starts just kind of like slowly just walking, and he's like he'd walk 50 yards and he'd feed, and as soon as like he'd start to kind of feed on something, I'd give him another call and he'd start walking again, and it's like, okay, now he's at 700 yards, and then he's at 600 yards, and we're like calling, and I'm like, at this point I basically like lay down behind the gun, get prone, get comfortable, and I'm like, whenever you guys are ready, like give me the dope, and I'll dial, and we'll make this thing happen.
You're seeing him constantly.
But
He's
the whole
not,
time,
like,
yeah,
disappearing.
not
or
disappearing.
Oh yeah,
anything?
the whole time.
Nice.
I mean, like, we never lose him.
Once he got to 400 yards, there's absolutely no place that he could go without Dale being able to potentially get a shot. So like at that 400-yard mark, like I'm behind the spotter, and now I'm kind of like
400 on a moose. Yeah,
I'm like, this is whooped.
it's like a 6 MOA target.
Josh had the wherewithal and like the calmness to just let him keep coming though, because me and Dale, I'm like shooting whenever
Yeah,
you can. Like,
take 'em.
Or I wanted to say that because I didn't say that, but Dale was on the gun and
I
had
was
plenty
like,
of good
as
shots.
soon as he got to 500, I was like, I'm
Let's
gonna
do
let
it.
eat. Like, let's do this thing. Yeah.
So, but Josh was staying calm. So it was good that Josh was there because Josh is actually feeding Dale the dope. So like, I feel like Josh also was like not giving Dale the new dial because he's like, dude, he's coming. Like he's coming. Like, he just keeps walking. So
let's let him do the hard work.
Literally, like looking back, Josh is like the smartest, most clutch move of the trip was just letting him continue to walk because he walked from there. The only time he disappeared was right on the river's edge. And Dale, I'll let you kind of take it from there. When he comes out of that,
He came to the water.
Yes.
Yeah. So he literally comes through, and he kind of like hits the edge, like right where the willows and everything are on the edge, and he starts raking a little bit.
How
and he
far from
turns
where
and
your
walks.
your tents got flooded? Like pretty close.
140 yards from the tents, or
149
the original tent spot.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yes.
So he's on
so he-
our side of the river, just the way the river
Yeah,
lays.
like
he's
Oxbow.
on. Yeah, he's on our side. So.
And he walks out, he kind of rakes for a second, and he comes and he walks literally to the edge of the river, and he stops for a split second, and he kind of kind of extends out and looks around. And I mean, as soon as he does, he's quartering to me. I put it like right on that, basically the point of his shoulder.
Sure.
And shoot. And we were shooting the 195 grain hammers, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And
Yes.
it hits him right there. And he does, the only way that I can compare it, because it's just such a large animal, right, is like, when you hit a whitetail high shoulder and they like tuck their back legs up under them and just hit like butt and then
Absolutely.
first.
It's like they fall up almost.
Yes.
Yeah. This is what this 1,400-pound bull moose does. I shoot, hit him right there, and he tucks his back legs and just
Anchored him.
slams down to the ground.
Did not even kick, no twitching, no nothing. Like
No.
watching this thing, because doing that, the whitetail thing, with having all that antler in the front, it kind of like whips his antlers up in the air, and like his butt hit the ground before, and he was dead before he even touched the ground, which was awesome coming.
That
I'm
is
like 300
awesome.
Weatherby, let's go. And and we it was a total pass through. We tried to find the bullet, but pass through. What are we, 300-ish yards?
It was three. Well, the calculated shot was like 336.
Mm-hmm.
So I mean, it could have been closer to 380-ish, I would say,
But
like
did-
straight line
yeah.
distance or whatever.
Right,
But like,
right.
did not move. Complete pass through. Like it comes
Game
out.
on.
It's like
basically right
it's like
at the
8:45 at this moment, maybe 8:30. So
No,
like,
it's like 9:15.
or
9:15
yeah,
in the morning
something like
at this
that.
point.
And like,
So now
it's
we're
like,
in literally the last 45 minutes of when we were going to get
And you
picked up.
dropped him on the river.
yes,
His nose fell into the
water.
of the river.
yeah,
That is crazy.
on a sandbar, like a beautiful sandbar,
Like right where you could pull the airboat.
Yeah.
Oh, that's ridiculous.
100%.
Yeah. So we hike all of our things down.
Well, we have like this like total freak out moment, right? With all of us. We're like super ecstatic, like obviously, right? Like this huge culmination of everything
For
coming
sure.
together and everything. We're like high-fiving. I think we're like fist pumping, and I'm like punching everybody's fist, just like super ecstatic.
Yeah.
I mean, I was, it was crazy wild. And I mean, we got everything on footage, which was super cool as well, that we were able to like have the wherewithal to like grab the camera and everything like that. And
That's gonna be cool.
so now we're like, all right, what do we do next? So like now we're like, okay, we have to pack everything super quick. And we're thinking, well, we need to at least be down there and to the bull by 10 a.m. That way that when RJ gets there, like, is he going to be mad? Like, I'm trying to text him, you know what I mean? Because he had told us that he had another group to pick up in the afternoon at this point.
Oh.
So now we're like, oh,
So now we're
crap,
like,
are we going to have to be there an extra day.
So you're trying to figure out if you can just load this moose whole?
Yeah, and for whatever reason, RJ only checked his phone when he was in Coldfoot. So like he did. I was like, there's no way he's got service, even if you or Zolio or InReach him now. He's kind of old school, so he would not have
he
service.
wasn't using an InReach?
Mm-mm.
Oh,
no.
No,
just cell phone.
Just a cell phone. So he would only check his messages once at night. So I'm like, there's no way. And so we get down to our original camp spot, and because there's like a little feeder creek that we had to pass, and earlier in the trip we made this sweet like bridge out of logs, and we're like, we'll just do that again. And that feeder creek, the mouth of it was like twice as wide, so like we couldn't get to the bowl.
Yeah.
Oh.
So we get down there, and it wasn't even 10 minutes later, you just hear the airboat coming. I'm like,
it's just roaring.
Yeah.
They're so loud.
So I think we were all pumped and everything, and Dale's like, "Do you think he's gonna be mad?" It's like, it's gonna go one or two ways. He's either gonna take it really well or not so well,
pissed, or he's gonna be like elated.
So it was like we were probably down there for 10 minutes before we hear the airboat, and then you can hear the airboat for 5 minutes just because it's so loud.
Yeah.
So he gets there and he pulls up right to the original spot.
Does he see the moose yet?
No, he didn't see it. And all of a sudden we
He
go.
literally went right by it.
Yeah.
Of it laying on the edge of the river and did not see the moose.
And RJ, shout out to RJ. He's awesome. It was funny. Dale goes, "We got a moose down." He goes, "Oh, good. Where?" And Dale goes, right there. And he's like, "Oh, wow, that's awesome." I was like, it's like we just shot. He's like, "When'd you shoot it?" Like, I don't know, 10 minutes ago. And then he's like, so cool. He's like, "All right, guys, well, let's go take care of the moose first. Leave all your gear here. Make sure you guys bring your guns." Cause he's like, if we see another moose, you guys can go off and chase it again. Like he was just so awesome.
So he wasn't at all upset.
100%.
Oh,
yeah. So
awesome.
He was awesome. He told us that that group actually came out a day early, so they came out the day before.
So he wasn't pressed for time at all.
So he's like, we got the full day, guys. Like, we'll go over there. Like, you'll take your time.
That's
I'll just pull
awesome.
Up. He's like, I'm gonna go pan for gold while you start cutting this thing up, type of thing.
RJ was awesome, super by the book, loved it. Like he could, as a transporter, could not help us, could not aid in anything.
I'm gonna go pan for gold. I love that.
He did go pan for gold. I was like, wish I would have ran over there with the camera to watch him do it, but he was just like a really awesome dude. So we got it. Took us 4 hours, 4.5 hours to break them down.
Over 4 hours.
Yeah, they're huge.
Yeah, they're giant. So
what did he end up at? How wide?
58. Like
57 and a half. No, 58. Yeah. Right at 58.
Yeah. I mean, it was like 57, 58. Let's. Yeah.
And he was 4 brow tines, so.
Yeah.
Yeah, 4 big brow tines. I mean, had like nice deep paddles. I mean, and I think he had 24 total points.
That's awesome.
I believe.
Pretty cool. He was pretty, not any, no significant breaks or anything. He just looked really cool.
Just an awesome moose.
Yeah.
Dude, you did a DIY Alaskan moose hunt. Like that's like a archery, Western archery elk hunt. Like the odds of success. Yeah. That's awesome.
Yeah, if not even lower, right? Like I started looking at it like after we got back, and I think that they say that the odds of success
it's single
is
digits.
like 7%.
Yeah, and
Something
with the
like
most
that.
of that being residents.
Archery elk's what, like 9 for a bull?
Yeah.
And
it's pretty wild
because residents don't have all the restrictions. They on the sense of like they can kill any moose,
moose,
or any antlered moose. I think so.
Yeah, any legal bull.
So, yeah,
man, good job.
Pretty wild.
That's awesome.
Pretty insane. Good trip.
Super fun.
Really.
Yeah. So, all right, last question, and then we'll let you get back to your regular scheduled program. What would you do different, like going in? Would you have changed anything now that you've done it?
Me personally, I mean, so as much as I love RJ and like the way that we did it, looking back at it, because I think that, to be 100% honest, I would probably go back roughly in the same area that we did. I would like to have taken a float plane in, that way that you have that flexibility to potentially hunt that back area away from the river that a lot of, because while we were there, one thing that we didn't mention is almost every single day that we were near the river, if not every single day, we saw multiple boats going up and down the river that were
pretty busy river.
Were residents,
Gotcha.
right?
Yeah.
So that was pretty busy. So that kind of makes sense why on the back side of the mountain, if you will, we were seeing most of the moose. So looking back at it now, I think it would be cool to try to go do it again and take a float plane in and get dropped off back
deeper.
there where
that
nobody
that would be cool.
really touched.
I think
I think that might be the only really difference, and potentially just go to that first glassing knob and say, hey, we're going to take all of our stuff up there right off the bat. But we had this mindset that we were only going to hunt that for 3 days, and then we were going to put everything in the alpacas and float down
and go
3 or 4 miles and go check some new country, right? So, I mean, I don't know really how else. I mean, maybe hike back there.
That's always the tough call, right?
Day,
like,
you know what I mean?
Do you leave moose to find moose?
Exactly. That's where we're like, no, don't leave.
Right?
So
right.
I think for me, biggest things are just a few gear tweaks. Is like knowing the alpaca. We never ended up using it, but like knowing that thing a little bit better because I've never messed with it. I just more or less, Dale's like, I know how to do it, and we had them at the office, so I brought mine. So that would be like that was like the biggest thing is like I may have not. We never had to use them, but I didn't feel as comfortable using that alpaca than what I probably should have.
Sure.
I think that was the biggest thing for me. And then I think the other one is it ended up turning out fine, but it doesn't always turn out fine. I think getting a little more local knowledge from some of our friends and stuff on that particular type of hunt would be my only other thing. Because the more I look back at it, it's like, man, we kind of, like with the transporter, it's not like he came recommended to us. It kind of ended up just happening that we got hooked up with this guy. So I would maybe use my net. It ended up fine, but I could see where that could have went wrong if RJ wasn't awesome. So
yeah, absolutely.
Man, you guys did it. That's pretty.
We did it. Yeah,
really good job.
Yeah, it was really cool.
At the risk of making this podcast longer, I'm going to tell you about Adam and I's moose hunt real fast because we were pretty much the same time as you guys, but in Alberta. It was really warm. There were tons of bugs. We never saw a moose. That's the end.
Yeah. I remember we were like going to save this for a dual podcast.
Yeah, we're going to compare moose stories, except for we didn't see moose.
Yep. And that's what I think one of my like realizations of how cool this trip was is I think it was the Friday when we got back to camp. I called you, and then I called and talked to Adam, and Adam's like, dude, before I killed my first moose, it was 20 days of hunting.
Yeah.
His first 10 days of DIY didn't see a thing. And then he hunted another one, didn't kill one or something. Yeah. And then it was like the first day of his third moose trip that he finally was able to connect. And he's like, it's no small feat that you guys went and did DIY. Like,
yeah, it's a big
that's
deal.
Awesome. So
it's a big deal.
That was where like finally like the dots kept connecting of like how hard of a trip this is for most people. And I think I was a little naive going in to where it's like, now that I know what we did, it's like, dang, that was pretty cool.
Super.
Like more cool.
So. I'm proud of you guys. That's awesome. Yeah. Really awesome.
Yeah, we had a great time.
Yeah. Well, Dale, awesome. Thanks for sharing the story with us.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on, guys. I appreciate it.
Yeah.
Until next time, I guess.
That's it.